A very busy time for all of us as we rush around trying to get presents and generally beat the crowds. One particular group of people who have double trouble at this time of year are our disabled residents, because if they're in wheelchairs, they want to get out and do Christmas shopping, but the aisles are narrower, there are a lot more people around, and they face a lot more hurdles and obstacles than most able-bodied people just to do some basic things. Who better to find out about what it's like to be disabled at Christmas than our old friend Liz Owen. Morning, Liz.
Morning.
Liz, you've recorded a video in a well-known high street chain showing the perils of trying to do your Christmas shopping. For you, as the video shows, it can be difficult. Tell us a little bit about your experiences of trying to get around shops at this time of year.
It is very, very stressful. I do, like you say, go online for a lot of things, mainly for practicalities, but also because of the access issues. And it's not just wheelchair users, I suppose anyone with a disability, plus parents with pushchairs and kids. And, you know, the main obstacle in these shops are the way that they are stocked and displays are out for Christmas, because obviously they want to sell as much as they can and they want to have all this extra stock, but they put it all in the aisles or the end of the aisles, and it means that that aisle is then suddenly halved in the width and you can't get round. My video shows a couple of shops, but mainly just the one. But it's been like this for years, and they don't think about their layouts. And even if they do, they could just ask, particularly as quite a lot of us will say, can you move this out of the way? And then you find a week later it's back where it was again. Particularly things like rolls of wrapping paper, they're always by the checkouts. And quite often it's quite dangerous, because actually I used to work in a supermarket and there's a legal limit to how high you can stack these things. And a lot of these things are stacked really high. I mean, a box of wrapping paper falling on you, you're going to be in trouble. It's a problem, and it's something that even if you tell them, they say, oh, it's just for Christmas. But then they don't realise the impact that has on your whole Christmas experience, because some shops aren't online, so obviously you want to go in like local businesses, little shops, but they're all the same problem. There's very few that don't really have it sorted out, I don't think.
Yes, we can all order stuff online, but the fact is, I can also, if I really want to, I can pop to have a look at stuff. But the fact is, I can just park and wander around and get that. But, you know, if you wanted to go to Oxford Street, for instance, and why shouldn't you? I would imagine that would probably not be high on the list of things that Liz Owen wants to do at this time of year.
Never. Even when I lived in London, that was one place I avoided at all costs, that and Covent Garden. They're just the worst, because not only have you got regular shoppers, you've got all the tourists, and they're all walking the wrong way, and they've got huge bags that they smash into you, and, you know, they're just, it's so stressful. And the noise and the lights, because I'm quite sensitive to all of that, and I know others are with auditory issues and all kinds of sensory issues, and that is another problem as well. It's just the amount of noise, and all the Christmas songs on loop. And I love Christmas songs, I'm not a Scrooge, but, you know, it's just a lot of things happening all at once.
It shows we've got a long way to go, because if you're truly diverse, if you truly want to include everyone, if you're inclusive, then it shouldn't be inclusive apart from people who aren't very able to get around, aren't able-bodied, are disabled, are in a wheelchair.
Yeah, there's nothing for wheelchair users, which maybe there should be, I don't know. But even if I was to go to the particular place I went to this time late at night, which it is open late, you've still got all the displays in the way, and actually you've got less people around to help, because the staff are kind of stacking shelves. Quite often I get members of the public and I've seen the problem and go, oh, can I help? And they're probably the most helpful people, to be honest. The
point you're making is that there's so much stock and not enough room in stores that there's just random stuff piled everywhere, but you were trying to manoeuvre your big electric wheelchair through. Again, it's a little bit of forethought, isn't it? You showed one high street food shop. It shouldn't be difficult to work out in St Neots. And they put a display right on the corner where hardly anyone could get round, and they had to, in the end, two of you had a problem and they had to move. Do you feel deep down slightly disappointed that you should have to keep highlighting this, or have you just become accustomed to it, or is this what drives you on into try and get change?
I think, disappointed and frustrated are the main ones, because nothing's changed, and I've told them every year. There's another really good supermarket where I take pictures and videos so that I can actually show them from my point of view, because they look and they go, oh, it's not that narrow, and it's like, well, this is the problem. But then a year later they've just done it all over again, so it's like, well, they haven't learned. And I guess I kind of feel like it's not as easy to have a win from that, whereas other projects in the rest of the year are easier wins. But that is just, I've just kind of almost given up, because nothing ever changes. I make a change and it'll be there for a few weeks and then it'll be back to that again next year. So yeah, I think everyone in the disabled community feels a bit like that.
Liz Owen never gives up. She's a fantastic advocate for the disabled. There'll be a little bit more from Liz looking back at what she's achieved this year a little later on in the show. And before, and you've appeared quite often on the show. I wonder if you might look back at what the year's been like for you and what you've achieved, and whether, as we get to the end of the year, you are pleased with how things have gone compared to what you thought at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it's been the most crazy year I can ever remember in terms of things moving forward and changes. And this time last year, we were planning our first Disability Awareness Day way back in January, which we're hoping to do next year. The plans have been on hold just because it's been so busy for everybody. But there was things in the pipeline for the changing places, but we had no funding, I don't think, was in place. There'd been no definite yeses or nos. Project Doorbell didn't exist back then. Like, there's so much that's happened this year, particularly all kind of the middle and second half of this year. I think the beginning of the year was kind of, going to listening in on meetings and going to ask for things and keep kind of prodding people and getting people aware of access and SNITs. And obviously at the festival, there was lots of awareness there. And I guess over the year, we've gained a lot more members of the group. We've got a lot more people speaking up for themselves and for the community, which is amazing. Particularly recently, a shop was opened with no disabled access, and usually it's just me going, why have you done that? But we had about 5 or 6 people, all different people, going, oh, please can you be accessible, and why isn't it accessible? And I thought, yes, this is the goal. This is exactly what I'd hoped would happen. And all the projects are ongoing, and obviously the changing places has been built, opened and in use. So it's insane to me that's even still there.
Well, let's look back. You were concerned that you were having to do a lot yourself, but over that course of the year, you have had more membership, you have had more active members, you have had more people taking up the baton. So that's one tick that you have. Now then, you mentioned the Disability Awareness Day that happened. That was a huge event, the first one of its kind, not only in St Neots, Cambridgeshire, but quite possibly across the country. You helped bring that off. That's not a bad little success, was it?
Yeah, it was really successful. It joined lots of people together, both the people that came who ran the groups, but also members of the public. And we learnt a lot from that too. We hopefully, when we do it again, it will be in the warmer months, because it was particularly cold last January. And obviously the venue will be different because it was at the Priory Centre, obviously, which is currently closed for refurbishment. So once we have details and once we figure out when it's going to happen, we want that to happen every year, because it's just a good place to come and find a lot of information out all in one place, I suppose.
But from that event, I think I did half a dozen interviews at least with different people I'd met there about disability issues. So from that point of view, it raised awareness. Other things I can think of that has happened in the disability world this year. Drop curbs, which you highlighted. That was, I think, in September before last. So it was over a year ago. But it's during this year, they finally found the funding for that. Santander Bank, which again, you were trying to say you weren't sure that it was going to happen. The only bank that was left in town virtually you couldn't access. That actually has a disabled lift. I think there's even another supermarket that didn't have a door or lock. That got fixed for a while, didn't it? I don't know if it's still fixing. They did the doors on that. So that's another success. You've also had, I know, a restaurant in town that was one of your bugbears appears to finally have come on board and made itself more accessible. I know that has been a success. Project Doorbell. I think you've got about at least 6 or 7 companies that have outfitted those.
Yeah, we're nearly at our 10 now. 1 or 2 are in place that need signs or extra signs and things, but once that they are all given out, then I'm hoping to fundraise to get some more, because they were from the grant I got from the town council, which again, that was a win getting that, because that helped fund that, and it helped fund a few other bits and pieces, all my publicity leaflets and things. And yeah, it's amazing. And these doorbells are being used. So that's even the best bit about that, though.
And the biggest one of all was Changing Places, which has been a 3-year campaign, and you finally got that open. We went along to Riverside Park. Again, huge success for you. So looking back, you must have achieved more than... I mean, if you'd have set out last January that you'd achieved all these things, you'd have been a happy person, wouldn't you?
Oh, more than happy, yeah. I can't believe that all these things have come together, and yeah, it's just insane. And I think, all these ideas I've got for the following year, like, if that can happen in a year's time I'll be talking about them, then yeah, it's amazing. And just the coverage and our group's nearly at 200 members now, which is insane to me, because they're all people that are quite actively taking part in things. So it's nice to have good community around us now, and people's attitudes are changing too, which is also good. So.
And I should also mention Roll and Stroll, which you've had a meeting, but it's been flood affected, where people can go along and chat and whatever. So that's another one of your initiatives. You personally were nominated for a regional award, and you got to the final of that. Fantastic. Big kudos. You went to a very posh event, and you've been on, apart from Black Cat Radio quite regularly, you've been on, off the top of my head, a local radio station that's from the BBC, a television programme called Look East, a Political East, and about Anglia. And I think I even saw mention of you somewhere in Rutland on a newspaper and stuff up there. So that's I think that's a fantastic achievement, Liz. I really do think that's fantastic how you've raised a bit of awareness of it in that year. And I tip my hat to you.
Your voice is sponsored
on the show, Liz Owen. We've looked back at the past year and the many successes that she's ticked off. I guess we should look ahead to 2025, Liz. You rarely rest. You always got something on the go. I know that you won't rest on your laurels. So what have you got planned? What sort of things would you like to try and see happen in St Neots for accessibility issues in 2025?
I think first on the list is the Roll and Stroll needs to develop more. That kind of hit a stumbling block, as you said, with the flooding. And I picked Riverside Park just because there's lots there. The other issues that we found are things that I couldn't have really predicted in terms of, when you meet up with people in wheelchairs, they tend to, we were trying to talk to each other, but I only can get 2 people on a path, so the paths aren't wide enough for us to kind of all chat. So I'm going to hopefully leave that for the summer months and have meetups and I find different venues, things like that. But again, it's cold and it's wet and people don't want to come out in that weather. So
could you not do it via social media, like a Zoom thing? Would that not be a way of connecting before you go out? I know it would be sort of roll the camera and stroll or something, but that would be one way of connecting people ahead of going out in better weather.
I love that name. I might actually have to steal that. That's a really good idea, actually. And I was trying to think of names the other day of things for meetup. So, yeah, I definitely... I did ask AI, but that was useless. So...
oh, well, we still have our uses, the human brain. You never know. So you want to try and get Roll and Stroll up and running, or however you do it. What other things would you have on your to-do list or tick list?
Definitely more doorbells, so they'll carry on regardless. There won't be a maximum limit. I'll just keep going until everywhere's got one that wants one, really. And also, ideally, there's a group called the Wheelchair Alliance that I'm a member of, and most of the mission of that is to get the NHS England to rewrite their criteria of who and how you can get an NHS wheelchair. A lot of people are excluded for very silly reasons, or they don't quite tick a criteria, like they can walk a really, really, really short distance, but then they still don't qualify, and they have to raise thousands of pounds just so that they can go outside and have a life. So, that there is a group for that, and so I'm kind of working with them. But also, I'd really like to tackle the local laws, or at least awareness of when a business opens, to make sure that they at least consider accessibility and have to tick off something before they're allowed to open, like whether it's the planning permission or the council or however I have to do that. I want to make sure that that is looked at, because we're still getting so many places opening with no access, and I just think they should be fined or something, or made illegal that you can't do that. Even if it's tricky, the law does say you have to make reasonable adjustments, and some people don't even do that. So I want that to be mandatory if possible. So yeah, that is a huge part of my plan next year, I think.
Anything else? You got any other things that you'd like to achieve, or is that quite enough to be going on with?
It's quite enough, but I think also helping people outside of St Neots. So I'm getting a lot of emails now as a result of the programmes I've been on, from Essex, from locally like St Ives, people wanting help in getting their changing places or doing what I do, and they want my help. So I don't mind doing that when I'm not so busy. So I think I'll be focusing on that too, because the more people that can do it in their own areas, maybe we can all join together and have one massive group that's even more of a force to be reckoned with, I think.